XCN to $5. The sleeping giant is waking up. This is NC Hammer Crypto. My name's Neil, where we keep technical analysis short and sweet. And first off and foremost, no, just in general, it's just to get you guys to watch, but there is important information in this video. We're going to cover it here today. So XCN, Can You Digit was saying, why do you bring up XRP when we just want to see XCN? Well, because XCN isn't doing anything right now. It's trying to build a base. Just to get a base, we see that it did do its liquidity sweep, which we had planned and were preparing for. It had a little bit of testing on this 200 EMA, but ultimate rejection before support here around 0.008. We are still in consolidation. We have the CM Guppy pushing this down pretty heavily. 200 EMA is very strong at the moment in the daily. When we start zooming in, let's take a look in the 4 hour. It doesn't look as bad and is a little bit more reliable. We mainly want to see it hold above this 0.008 because if we get a close below this area around 0.007 from previous history back here on the 7th of April, that is very bearish, but for the most part, I'm not worried about it. What has happened in this past week, I'm going to bring up XRP to show an explanation of market manipulation in general. So when we get rid of everything, this is abnormal. This one bar right here going from roughly $2.80 down to $1.80, completely abnormal. Why did that happen? False news like Trump stating that there was going to be 100% tariffs in China. What this essentially is showing is that they are trying to give more time for people like China and people who are not retail investors to get in at a cheaper price because they are too dumb to enter in at an earlier price like 50 cents. They say, okay, you can't hit the 50 cents. We can't push it down to 50 cents anymore, but we will give you this little blip here to $1.70 from $2.80. Completely ridiculous, completely abnormal. It's market manipulation at its finest. Like I think it was Void that said it, the biggest liquidation since FTX, which is essentially true. None of this is normal, but what we are seeing is that the government is starting to put their hands in the cookie jar, and they're trying to manipulate the market and get retail traders to sell at a massive loss before this thing starts to take off. We've been saying this thing should be taking off for quite a while. We are holding support here at roughly 1 cent with XCN. However, we did not break over this 0.013 to test this downward red trend line. I'm not worried about it. You shouldn't be worried about it. Is this thing going to zero? No. Is this thing going to $5? No. Neither of that is true. But we are sitting at 0.008. If you have not entered XCN, you still have the opportunity to. We see that in the past, we are at an absolute low for this area, around 0.008, where we are currently sitting. Before one day, it had a major push up. I believe it was 200% from this 1 day candle, maybe 2 or 3 days, 228%. We can expect a lot more increase once this gets over this 200 EMA and this downward red trend line. 200% is just the beginning. This has a long way to go to hit the top. This is in the 4 hours, going back out to the daily. In this chart, 10 cents, like we've been talking about, is some major resistance. There's going to be some resistance here around 5 and 6 and 7 cents. But the 618, keeping in mind, is here at 0.06. For those of you who have entered at roughly 1 cent or roughly 2 cents, that's pretty good returns. That's a couple 100%, which is where we're going to see a lot of people pulling out and waiting for support off this 0.05 most likely before pushing up to 10 and beyond. If you're willing to hold all the way through that, good for you. If you want to do some scalp trading, I will keep you informed on the scalp trades here to come for XCN. But I always like to compare it to other cryptocurrencies. And as always, the people who have just been crossing their fingers waiting for XCN to make them a millionaire, there's other things out there that can be pushing money in profit. For example, Tornado Cash, still over almost 90% profit when everything else is getting liquidated and being pushed back. Look at this. Tornado Cash is still holding above the 200 EMA. It's holding above where I begged you guys to enter in at $11, where you had the opportunity to enter in at $11 again, and it had a major push up to 21 yet again. I was on vacation actually whenever this thing happened. Oh, that was right before vacation. Yep. So we had that quick tap to 21, major retracement, but we are getting some support. We are still holding above the 200 EMA. If you have not entered using Tornado Cash, I recommend MEXC. The reference link is in the description below. If you use that reference link, you get 10 USDT for free. I always recommend using a VPN if you're going to use MEXC and are in the United States, but I highly recommend Tornado Cash. It's $12, all-time high of $459. So you are at an extremely low point. Moving back to XCN, essentially we want to see it just hold this area. If it cannot hold this, the retracement you could potentially see is all the way down here for the major liquidity sweep at 0.002. If you have a sell stop anywhere within this area, I'd probably remove it personally, because if you're getting your sell stop tapped within this area, it is most likely going to be retracing very quickly back to this red downward trend line. And you don't want to be the liquidity sweep, get stopped out, and then have it take off in the direction you've been waiting months for it to go. I want to say I was wrong, but there is no understanding of market manipulation and what the government can do. So for example, Bitcoin was at its absolute all-time high here at 124,000 and had that major sell-off. What happened whenever it had that major sell-off? Well, BlackRock was buying millions at 108,000 per Bitcoin. Why? Because it's not going to be going much lower. We got that 200 EMA that's very strong, and we are most likely going to start seeing this push up. I would personally like to see what I typically look for is inverse head and shoulders here, something to play out similar to this before ultimately taking back off to the upside. Currently sitting at 107 is just a matter of time. And in the news, in TradingView, I believe it was in XRP, XRP had stated that with this liquidity sweep, completely abnormal, always completely abnormal with market manipulation, new XRP ETFs. Okay, so if there's ETFs, why are we seeing a reduction in price? Because the SEC is holding holding near the back. It's holding stuff back. It says the deadline is October, which is what we were expecting. It's Uptober. It's always been October. But when the government starts getting involved and BlackRock starts getting involved, they say, Bitcoin's for money laundering. And now they are one of the biggest holders of the money laundering coin. So, buy the rumors, sell the news. Now, instead of November 22nd, we could be waiting until December, which is, December is coming up quickly. Do you want to have some profits before December, or do you want to wait till the next year before you start cashing out and start paying taxes on that? We don't really know what's going to be happening in these next days. All we can be doing is giving the best educated guesses. And as always, I recommend dollar cost averaging XRP. If we are doing the top to the bottom, we already hit the 618. And so the next move, if we can get above that 200 EMA, would be the $2.81. Beyond that, essentially breaking this downward trend line. A lot of important dates were supposed to be happening here in October. May we see a quick movement upwards? Yes, that's a possibility, but ultimately here within this area, November 22nd to November 29th and pushing into December is when we're going to start seeing some more volatility for XRP, XCN, and everything else in between. Like and subscribe if you haven't. I'm going to try and cover some other coins because I was on vacation in Italy, walked 68 kilometers within the week, so I'm very exhausted. But I will start to cover some other coins and keep you guys updated. And for those of you who have not entered Tornado Cash, use that reference link. Free money using that reference link. And Tornado Cash is up over 80% when stuff like XCN is down pretty heavily from a lot of people's entries waiting for this red line to be broken. That's it for this video. Like and subscribe, and good luck. Have fun with it. I will see you guys on the next one.